You're listening to the TV Obsessive channel, presented by TVObscast.com. Hello, and welcome back to the TV Obsessive podcast. Here today for episode 84, sort of a bonus episode of the podcast, insofar as we're going to talk about the season premiere of Severance, which comes out on the same day as the season finale of Silo. So this one should be out first, and then by the evening of the 17th, you can look out for our sort of regularly scheduled programming, where we'll do our news and notes and talk about Silo. As always, Cameron Crane, executive editor for TVObsessive.com, joined today, as always, by Ryan Kirksey, writer and contributor for the site. How are you doing today, Ryan?
Today is a very good day. We have made it. We finally are back with Severance. We have taken the long elevator ride back down, discover our any selves, and I could not be more excited to talk about this.
Your tempers aligned.
It's right.
Hopefully we'll have a waffle party.
Well,
maybe
I mean,
an egg bar.
I don't know that I don't know if I want to do a waffle party with you today. Maybe we'll think about that.
Well, we don't know. Okay, fair enough. The waffle parties are separate. They're individual, right?
That's right. That's
We
right.
wouldn't get an waffle party together. Then we could enjoy a delicious egg bar.
There you go.
Yeah, man, I'm really excited to get back into Severance. It's been, almost 3 years since season one ended. I think it pretty much has been 3 years since season one premiered. Of course, with the show getting delayed with its production, again, that they started working on the show in like 2017 or something like that.
Yeah, I did.
Um,
I did listen. I think I caught that on the first episode of the Ben Stiller, Adam Scott podcast. They were talking about just how long ago not only Dan Erickson wrote this, but how long ago they started working on the show. Yeah, it's been 8 or 9 years that they've been working on this thing. We have
right.
an episode. We have a season plus one episode so far.
And 10 episodes, so yeah, so they ran into production delays, of course, with COVID, and then production delays with the strikes. But we're finally back, and man, we've hit on this a little bit on the podcast, but they definitely are promoting this show beyond anything I've seen for an Apple TV Plus show before.
Absolutely. I mean, I can't tell you how many podcasts I had jump up on my feed this week that featured either Ben Stiller or Adam Scott. You may have seen the Severance pop up in New York City where
Yeah,
they're,
Grand Central Station.
yeah, and they're
Yeah.
encased in glass and working. I have just seen reviews and commentary everywhere. I mean, of course, there was not much knowledge of what this was or what to expect when it first came out 3 years ago, but yeah, there seems to be the entire culture getting on board with this season.
Yeah, it makes me happy. This is, I don't, it feels like bragging. The intention is not to brag. I was on Severance from the beginning, like it caught my eye as something that looked intriguing. I watched it right as it was coming out, and just immediately started telling everyone I knew, like, hey, you should watch this show Severance on Apple TV Plus. It's really good. So like I'm look, I'm happy that it's gained as much popularity as it had. And it took a little while. By the time we had to at the end of season one, it sort of had, but then it kind
Hmm.
of kept gaining steam. In some ways, the production delays probably gave it just more time to gain more
Yeah.
and more steam as the show people were talking about. And it's also the kind of show that you can fruitfully rewatch and think about and make podcasts and videos and write articles and dig into little details and questions that might not ultimately matter. Um, but I love it. And
Yeah.
I did just recently rewatch season one and enjoyed doing so.
Yeah.
It's
As did I. I did do a rewatch. I know how much you love this, and I'm think I'm almost there with sharing your affection for this. I found obviously there's a lot out there. People recapping the first season, people talking about the second season, people giving their reviews and commentary. I found one that I wanted to get your one comment that I want to get your opinion on. This is from the Esquire TV critic. Let me just make sure I give them proper credit. Josh Rosenberg. He
okay.
wrote in his review, just overall review of season two, the Apple TV Plus series makes a strong case for itself as the best show on TV. Hell, I would have waited another 3 years if I knew that season two was this damn good. Would you have waited another 3 years if it's
Well,
gonna
yeah,
be the
I
best
mean,
show?
but I prefer not to. You
Yeah,
know, what it's a kind of an odd comment. Like if it had been somehow necessary, I suppose, is what he means there.
yeah, yeah,
Um, but I am hopeful now that we've got season two. Hopefully they'll be able to get into production on season three and things will be a bit more normal and it will be more like a year or a year
yeah.
and a half or even
According,
2 years.
according to Adam Scott, they're already working on season three.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's
Um,
even been an official renewal yet, but that must have already happened behind the scenes for them to be working on
yeah, I mean, I haven't seen that news item, but I mean, that would be
it. Yeah,
terribly surprised if they canceled it
right.
after two seasons. Um, so, and I've also seen things that like Dan Erickson has the ending in mind or whatever. I haven't
Mhm.
seen anything about if there's a plan as to how many seasons they think that will take. I hope
Yeah,
that it gets. I mean, I don't know. I love the show enough that I hope it goes on for 10 seasons.
yeah, exactly.
It's not like I'm not going to be clamoring for closure necessarily. Just let me live in the world more. But yeah, it is. It is striking. You're talking about all the stuff that's out there. I've watched some other videos and podcast stuff, and um, I do feel like, all right, maybe there are some people in the world who are obsessing over the details more than me at this point, but that's okay. That's cool because I enjoy also consuming, some of that stuff.
Yeah,
Um,
I do
and
too. I do too.
hopefully it'll really get going here with season two. Um, oh, do you see the balloon generator? You can balloon yourself.
No, I haven't seen that one.
Yeah, yeah. So you know how the Adam Scott's face is on the balloons.
Yes.
Mark Hess's face is on the balloon. And that was already out there, like in the trailer and the promo key art and stuff like that, right? But they made, I think this is official. Um, I forget what it's like severanceballoon.com or something like that. But you can go and upload a picture of your own face, or I guess anything else that you want to, and push a button and it generates it puts that image on a balloon.
That's incredible. It really is almost staggering to think there's been this massive groundswell of popularity and interest and I think growth of this show in between these two seasons to where there will clearly be more people watching this season. Um, I can only imagine what might happen between seasons two and three. I mean, this is an unbelievable hit. The numbers are going to be, I'm sure, astronomical, and they'll release them, I'm sure, as the season's over or as episodes come out. But I mean, this could, I don't know how many households have Apple TV Plus and how, much accessible, but man, whatever the upper limit is of what can be done with this show, I imagine we hit it at some point in the life of this thing.
Yeah, and as we mentioned on here previously, they've also made some efforts to try to remove that barrier to entry a bit
Mhm.
with the free Apple TV Plus, what, last weekend or whatever it was. And I think on the last podcast we mentioned how apparently that you can watch season one for free on the Roku channel and figure out what that is. Um, but they're definitely pushing it. Ben Stiller's pushing it really hard. I mean, then the fact that he's doing that podcast with Adam Scott,
Yeah.
two biggest names. And well, I don't know. Are they the two biggest names involved with the show? From a broad scale point of view, that might be debatable, I suppose. Someone might argue, like, dude, Christopher Walken,
Yeah.
John Turturro,
I will
Patricia
say
Arquette.
I haven't caught the one today, which is the finale, the season one finale, but I did catch most of the other eight that they have done. And the one with John Turturro, I thought the first one and the one with John Turturro, I thought were just fantastic. John Turturro is just, I mean, he is firing on all cylinders, telling stories and talking about getting involved with this show and how he came up with the voice. And it's just, it is incredible.
That's great. I'll have to check that one out and sort of catch up. I listened to the first one I mentioned to you, and then
Yeah.
you've overtaken me because they've been putting out one of those like every day, so it's kind of a lot to
Exactly. Exactly.
try to keep up with. But yeah, okay, so we're talking about the season 2 premiere called Hello, Miss Cobel. Miss Cobel? Cobel is how you say it. Cobel, not Cobel. Um, I guess as per our usual, I'll say, okay, here's your spoiler warning. We haven't really gotten to spoilers yet. So if for some reason you've been listening to us so far and haven't watched Severance, spoilers will be on the table for all of season 1 and the season 2 premiere. Pop in a little bit of music and be back in about 10 seconds.
All right, we're here to talk about Severance Season 2, Episode 1, the premiere of this new season. This episode was written by Dan Erickson and directed by Ben Stiller, and is titled Hello, Miss Cobel. We start after the events of Season 1 with Mark S. entering the severed floor of Lumen 5 months after those events. At least that's what he has been told. He races to try to find Miss Casey in the wellness office, but wellness has disappeared. In MDR, he's greeted by not only a new team, Mark W., Gretchen Y., and Dario R., but also new MDR supervisor, Mr. Milchick, gifts him with some balloons as a welcome back present. In addition to Mr. Milchick's promotion, there's a very young Miss Wong who's taken over as his assistant, and Miss Cobel is nowhere to be found at Lumen. The 4 MDR employees who staged the rebellion back in season 1 have become international news and are now the face of severance reform. The Milchick says he was unsuccessful in convincing Irving, Dylan, and Helly to return. Mark S. tries to frame Mark W. by taking a note outside the severed floor, but Mr. Milchick discovers this. Mark runs into Milchick's office to demand that the board return his old team to Lumen. Sometime after, they do all return to the office, and Milchick shows them a video laying out the appealing new changes Lumen has made for employees based on the actions of those 4. Milchick tells them it's completely up to them now if they decide to stay at Lumen, but they have until the end of the day to decide. They talk amongst themselves at the innies, at least, about what they saw on the outside. Helly, however, lies about it, saying that she did not see anything. Irving comes close to leaving, but eventually decides to stay. Mark wants to find out what happened to Miss Casey. Dylan has a meeting with Milchick, a secret meeting where he's promised that he was going to get to interact with his Audi family. And the episode ends, the team getting back together, going back to data refining, ending with a visual of Miss Casey and some of her vitals, it seems, on a screen after Mark refines some numbers. So, some of the same old mysteries still exist. What are they doing? What are they refining? What is Lumen up to? We have lots of other questions out there now. Where is Miss Cobel? Lots of things introduced here. Boy, there's no shortage of places we can start. Should we sort of start with the idea that Mark is back and it's been 5 months? What do we think about that? Where should we go?
Yeah, I mean, I think to some degree it's unavoidable to start with, all right, well, where do we leave things off and where do we pick things up? Um, I really enjoy that we're entirely within Lumen in this episode. So
Yes.
we don't actually know what's true in terms of what's going on in the outside world,
Mhm.
and we have to sort of rely with Marcus on what Milchick says. Milchick, who may or may not be a shambolic rube.
Or a milkshake.
Um,
Yeah.
milkshake. Yeah. So, to briefly recall from the season 1 finale, they used Helly, Mark, and Irving, at least, on the outside while Dylan was holding those levers. Miss Cobell was fired um, in that episode, right? But then ended up at Rickon's book reading where she realized that Mark had become his innie. She raced to the Lumen Gala, where Helly was taking the stage, where her Audi, Helena Hagen, was supposed to give a speech in defense of Severance, right? So Helena Egan became severed Helly as part of this kind of PR plan or what
Hmm.
have you. Um, she does manage to say some things there, gets disrupted. Milchick finally makes it into the server room and breaks the connection, gets Dylan off of those dials, episode ends, right? Pick up with season two, Mark S. coming to in the elevator, frantic, and then running through the halls of Lumen looking for the wellness office because he's realized while he was on the outside that the woman that he knows as Miss Casey um, is, was, verb tense, I don't know, his Audi's deceased or supposedly deceased wife, Gemma, right? So he cares about that. And as you mentioned, right, then he's trying to find out. He's trying to find the wellness office. The wellness office is gone. Um, do we start with the 5 months? I mean, I guess we're going a little bit out of order in terms of the episode, but Milchick
Yeah,
ultimately tells him it's been 5 months. So
I, I guess that it's a sense of there are clues throughout that could lead us to believe, I guess my guess question, are they telling him the truth about this? We have no way of knowing because, as you pointed out, I think very astutely noting that there is nothing outside this floor in this episode, right? So they could tell these people anything and they would just have to believe it. But there are some signs that maybe it hasn't been 5 months. There's some clues there. What would have happened during that time? Um, Mark S. has shown a page of a newspaper that clearly does not look like it is real. So there's a lot of sort of a lot of propaganda going on here. So what we believe about that and what we'll find out, I presume, is to come. But yeah, just hard to think that it's been 5 months since he's been back on that floor.
yeah, the newspaper's fake, right?
Yeah.
Like I hardly even think it's a question. Um, it is really curious and also funny. I always want to attend to the humor of this show
Yeah.
because I think that's part of what makes it so great is that, I mean, on the one hand, it is a sci-fi thriller, or even,
Hmm.
I saw someone claim that this show is horror, and I think you could make that argument,
Yeah.
but it's also a comedy.
Yeah.
Um, and the fact that most of that newspaper page is redacted is, I think, just hilarious
Yeah.
because it's clearly fake. It's clearly a fake newspaper. So it's called the Kier Chronicle or something.
That's right. That's right.
Which I guess, I mean, that actually, maybe that could be the name of the newspaper in the outside world because I think that I think they're in a town called Kier, actually, maybe.
Oh, okay. I didn't
Um,
realize that. I mean, I assumed it was like a company newsletter or newspaper or something.
there's aspects about this. I mean, these are lingering questions from season one. I think, as I said in our intro, about details where I'm not sure how much they matter. And
Yeah.
one of
Yeah.
them is this: where are we? Right?
Exactly.
Irving looks at when he's on the outside, looks at some mail. The postal abbreviation is PE,
Yeah.
which is not a state in the United States. It is the postal abbreviation for Prince Edward Island, Canada,
Okay.
but the zip code is like a US zip code. And also, I think Dan Erickson has said somewhere, maybe in the Reddit AMA or something, like, no, it's not Prince Edward Island.
Yeah.
So, well, what? Well, like, what does PE stand for? Where are they? Are they in Canada? Um, Irving also lives in an apartment complex called Leonora Lake, which is also a place in Canada on the absolute opposite side of the country from Prince Edward Island. Um, so I don't know those kinds of details. Like, I'm curious, but yeah, I think there was some indication that because Mark lives in Lumen housing complex or whatever, and maybe I think there was some indication of them also having named the city. That doesn't mean the newspaper, though, even actually exists in the outside world. Any
Right.
Mark would have no way of knowing that.
Exactly right. Yeah. Yeah.
But it shows. So Milchek's saying that Mark, Kelly, and Irving became like celebrity advocates against Severance, right?
Yeah, they are international celebrities. Now, how that would be when it has only been their outies on the outside who would have no concept of what happened during this time.
Mhm.
But I guess what they're trying to pitch to them is they became at the with the permission of their Audis, they became these international celebrities in the face of severance reform. And so they've been, going around giving speeches and talking to people. And in the meantime, Lumen has spent 5 months making positive and appealing changes for its employees to make the severed work life better for them. And so that's tried to be portrayed through some of these perks and videos and things like that. But
It
yeah, I
doesn't
don't
make
think
any
you and
sense.
I are
Doesn't
buying it.
No, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't hold up. The picture is like of them on a parade float or something. But you already hit the important point. Though if if that were a real photograph, it would have to be the Audi versions of those characters
Hmm.
who don't have the experience of being any versions of those characters.
Yeah.
And we've met all three of them in the outside world. Mostly Mark, mostly
Hmm.
Mark, fair. But what do we see of Irving? Well, he's obsessively painting that black painting of the hallway with the elevator to take you down to the testing area, right? Looks exactly like where we saw Miss Casey go.
Yep.
I have some more I want to say about that if we at some point, it doesn't even necessarily have to be this week, um but okay, we've seen Mark a lot, who is in grief over his dead wife,
Yeah. Mark
drinks
is
a
just
lot.
he's despondent. He is, I mean, not at all like his any self, obviously. We've seen Irving, as you said, not only painting, but also another sense of obsessions or of tracking down and looking for Lumen employees, it seems, or keeping tabs on them or trying to find something out about them, just not behaviors that would be representative of I'm going to be an international celebrity that is fighting for change and severance reform, right?
Well, and then Helena Egan, we've met her a little bit too. Maybe
Yep.
most strikingly on videotape when she told her any, I am a person and you are not,
Right.
right? I mean, so there's just no way that I can buy that bit really.
Yeah.
And then has it been 5 months? Okay, well, I'm also pretty confident the answer to that is no.
Yeah.
Um, the biggest clue here being what the title of the episode refers to, which is the message on Milchek's computer screen. It still says, hello, Miss Cobel. Milchek is the new manager. He's still moving into that office. He's got unpacked boxes. That doesn't feel like
Yeah.
5 months, man. I don't think Seth Milchek puts off settling in.
Yeah.
This feels
He,
more like it's
he seems
next
frustrated.
week than
Yeah. He seems frustrated enough that that screen has not changed, that he is not someone that would stand by and just let that be the case for 5 months while, no one takes care of it.
yeah, hard to imagine. So I don't think the 5 months really holds up. Now then let's move to like what I guess is the next thing. What's going on with this new team?
Hmm.
They're enjoyable. You know, Mark W asking, would you consider changing your name to avoid confusion? It's great. There's some really great moments there. Oh, and then also we've got the new office manager, Miss Long, who is a child. Why is she a child? Because of when she was born. Um, what do you so what do you make of just the fact that there is a new team? I guess maybe let's start there.
Yeah, because I guess the story that they're trying to sell, or they do try to sell Marcus, is that they could not get his team to come back. They could not convince them to come. So Mark was, according to Milchick, begging to let him come back the next day, which is another thing, we can't necessarily take at face value. Um, I guess I sort of got the opinion that these, yes, were data refiners at some other branch of Lumen somewhere else, and they have transferred them to this branch. They talk about the idea of different branches of where they were working, and they're going to hope that Mark just sort of assimilates into this new team.
They're all
I
from
don't think
different
they're like
branches.
staged, but I think they're real employees. They're not, actors or anything. So yeah, just not sure what obviously sort of expands the world of Lumen and what we need to think of who they are. It's not all just confined to this one building, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure. But that does seem to be the outward appearance of things. It kind of seems like they came from different branches. They talk about where they came from. the one guy, is he named as Dario in the episode? Did I
So
just
he is
miss
not
that?
named as Dario in the episode. He is named Dario on IMDb and in Wikipedia.
Okay. I'll have to go tweak the article that I wrote, which was also out today. You can go read that on TVObscast.com. I couldn't find a name for the guy when I was writing. There was no name on IMDb at that point, not within this episode. But anyway, he speaks Italian. So it seems like he doesn't speak English, you know? So, like, is he actually from Italy? Um, Little Easter egg. Uh, I was watching, man, who was I watching? Someone. Sorry, don't have the credit, don't have the source. Um, but it was on this question of what he's saying in Italian.
Hmm.
Um, and apparently what he says is something like, "Why are you standing weird?"
Okay.
Which would be a callback to Dylan saying that to Mark in season one. I thought that was funny.
Yes. Yes. Okay.
Um, but yeah, so what's going on with these people? We have to go further. You know, they have their little getting to know you session. They're not getting along terribly well. As you mentioned in your summary, Mark tries to frame Mark.
Yes.
Um,
I mean, terrible job by Mark S. I mean, this is not the most sophisticated thing he
you
could have
didn't
ever.
even conceal your handwriting.
Yeah. What I didn't understand was this is a very minor point, but did he do that just with the intention of sort of raising this issue so that he could distract them then with the kitchen and run off, or was that distracted with the kitchen and run off and do the board thing just a result of it didn't work, his trying to frame Mark W and get his old team back? I didn't know if that was planned or not.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it
Yeah.
was intended to just be the distraction that it served as. But then, okay, so yeah, he runs to Milchek's office. He gets the intercom out. He talks to the board or tries to talk to the board. Never clear whether one is really talking to the board.
Right.
Um, and then Milchek shuffles him out of the office.
Yep.
And when he comes back the next day, um, Mark W, Gwendolyn Y, and Dario are gone.
See, but I would even push back on saying, how do we know that's the next day? The
Well, we
next
don't know.
day in the office, I guess,
It's the next day for Marquez. Yeah.
for Marquez. Yeah, yeah,
Well, it's even more precisely, it's the next minute for Marquez, I
yeah.
suppose.
It's instantaneous, right? He leaves and comes right back. Yeah, but we don't
Okay,
know how much
so
time has passed.
that's good. Fair point. Good call out. We don't know how much time has passed. Um, but then I think we easily get caught up in the fact that we are also glad to see Dylan and
Hmm.
Irving and Helly. And we can almost forget about the question of these other people.
Yeah, yeah.
We don't know them any better than Marquez does. Who cares about those people?
Presumably we'll see them again. That can't be it for the season, I would think.
I don't know.
I don't know either.
I don't know. My working little theory is that perhaps they didn't really come from other offices around the world, but that would tie into a bigger theory. This would be like the more important kind of speculative theory that down there in the testing area where Miss Casey is, there are any number of other people, right?
Yeah,
And so the theory here is that these three were deployed like Miss Casey was deployed as the wellness
yeah,
officer or whatever in wellness counselor in season one. And then they've been put back down in the offices are in the basement. So you almost have to call the dungeon.
yeah. I mean, this wherever this down button elevator goes to that Irving's been painting and that they have seen. Yeah, that supposedly Miss Casey was or is there. This is a place where we've seen theories about, they are down there sort of mining people's consciousness or sort of keeping them, as you said, quote unquote, on ice or something, just until they need them, to deploy them to do certain things. Yeah, I don't, I mean, I do think that that's a very plausible theory that they have just sort of people on standby that they can use for whatever they want. And to think that they can, through the severed procedure, somehow control what's in their brain and what stories they put in their head of who they are and where they've come from, that certainly seems reasonable to me.
Well, we have some evidence for that with Miss Casey, you
Yep.
know. So that theory could be wrong with regard to Mark's new team. Uh, but yeah, what the other possibility is, okay, maybe they really were transferred from other offices and they transferred them back to other offices. But what's really sticking in my craw, as it were, is why is all of this going on? Because we already talked about how the newspaper's fake and we kind of don't buy Milchek's story in meaningful ways. We don't know yet what really happened on the outside. Is it true that Irving, Dylan, and then Helly, that's going to be a separate question, but is it true that they were resistant to coming back in? I don't know how well that holds up for me either with Dylan and Irving, you know. Um, there would have to be meaningfully more that occurred than we saw,
Yeah.
because even with Helly giving the speech at the gala, she gets up and starts saying how she's an innie and it's terrible, and everyone laughs at her. It doesn't seem like this is starting a
Yeah.
international movement against severance. And then, like, why would Dylan's innie wasn't even on the in the outside world? Then
Yeah, that's exactly right. And as far as we know, Irving made it to Bert's house and then woke up and then what? I guess just went home. We don't.
yeah, I'm like, or Bert did come to the door, but by that point he's back to Audi Irving, and he goes, "Oh, sorry,"
Yeah, and they don't
you
know who each
know.
other are. Exactly, exactly.
I mean, Irving, Audi Irving, he knows who Bert is insofar as he's got files on him,
Yes,
you
yes.
know. But presumably Audi Bert doesn't know who Irving is. I don't think. It is interesting
It
with
just can make your brain explode trying to think about what the different permutations of what each side of them thinks or knows or has been through. But yeah, I mean, it just sort of all revolves around this question of would Mark's Audi have really been eager to come back? Maybe because
maybe.
he was had no issues with doing what he did. He had no concept of him waking up, quote unquote, at the party. So why wouldn't he want to come back?
Well, so what we imagine. So we have to imagine Devin telling him that this has happened.
Yeah,
Okay. On the one hand, then if she got that Mark Zinni was saying that Gemma is alive in that very last scene before he switched back, you can see that motivating Audi Mark to want to return. On the other
absolutely.
hand, could very much see Audi Mark just being completely freaked out
Yes.
by being told that this happened.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, just imagine, yeah, you have been in this state of grief for however many years, and all of a sudden, oh, the other side of me, oh, I don't know and don't understand and have no concept of who that person is or what they do, is saying that your wife is alive. No, he's thinking I saw her dead or I buried her or whatever. He's like, there's just no way. So yeah, just how you process that information. That's a that I hope we get some of this outside stuff. I don't know if they will look back sort of immediately after and we see any of that.
well, yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I trust them to do it well.
Yeah.
So are we going to visit people in the outside world? Certainly, yes. I mean,
Yes.
I expect in episode two to see Audi Mark, at least.
Yeah.
But exactly like how do they play it? It's probably not going to be an exposition dump that's good. So we're going to have to be piecing some things together. And
Yeah.
that is another question I have. Most of what we've seen of the outside world has been through Mark.
Hmm.
Is that going to continue? We got a little bit through Irving towards the end of season two, where they opened. I want to say it was episode 8 of season one that they opened with Irving and his dog, Radar, and all of that.
Yes. Yes. That's why
And
he was on the episode 8 of the podcast. Yes, that's why.
and so we've circled around this a couple of times. I just want to get the question out there, I guess, finally, because one of the big things that's stuck in my mind since season one is you have Irving painting that hallway over and over again,
Hmm.
the perspective from which he paints that hallway would be Milchick's perspective in terms of what we've seen. When Milchick Miss Casey goes down the hall, the red down arrow doesn't appear until after she's in the elevator.
Hmm.
So, working theory is that at some point in the past, Irving had Milchick's job
Yes. Yes.
and maybe got disturbed about things or whatever, and now has become a severed employee. And who knows what all the details are here. But
Yeah,
then they
we're,
have
we're
to
we're walking the line of somebody who was, yeah, force severed, right? That's sort of the
maybe,
theory that that's what has happened to Irving. If he has a concept of what this place was without his any having never seen it, there's something in there residual, right? There's sort of this, there was a lot of discussion in the off season, quote unquote, between seasons about, what sort of information is retained between outies and innies. They know the language. They know, based on the
yeah.
questions that Mark asked Helly, they know what states are. They know a lot of information. So there's something in there that gets retained. And that this image is something there for Irving because we have no knowledge that he as an innie has ever seen that.
Yeah. We can dig into some of the,
Yeah, that's
potential
surely to
neuroscience
come.
at
Yeah.
some point, maybe somewhere along the line.
Yeah.
Regardless, I get the feeling that the Audi version of Irving is painting that painting over and over again to like try to get it to seep through to his indie
Hmm.
version.
Yep.
And that makes some sense, I think, as an interpretation because we do see the goo, which we discover is paint, right?
Hmm.
So we'll see where that goes. But okay, we'll talk about Helly
Hmm. Okay.
because of all of them, it is the hardest to see her deciding to go back to work as a severed employee, right? Like thinking about Helena Egan,
Yeah.
she became a severed employee, Helly, like for the purpose of that presentation at the gala.
Hmm.
I I don't even know if I think she was going to go to back after that if it had gone as planned, you
Yeah.
know. Um, Maybe so, but now if she knows that her any had taken over outside or whatever, messed up her speech and all of that, why would she want to go back in? Um, and so we hit on the theory that we both seem to have landed on independently from one another, which is this idea that perhaps the Helly that we do see back in Lumen in this episode is not really Helly R, who we've come to know and love, not the innie, but
Hmm.
maybe the Audi
The
has,
Audi is playing the innie in this case, right? I
yeah,
that
that's a
we
good way of putting
agree there that it seems clear from the clues we have through one episode that Helly, having first lied about what she saw when she was on the outside, have been kind of caught in that lie a little bit by Irving asking about, you saw a night gardener, right? So sort of poking
it. Yeah.
holes in her. Oh, he must have had another job during the day, that type of thing. Poking some holes in her story. Um, wouldn't she be the first one to stand up and say, "Oh, I was able to sabotage something that they were looking to do. They were trying to use this as a way to push this severance through legislation. I was able to, wreck that plan, right?" So I can see Audi Helly saying, "Yeah, we can sort of make this we can pull one over on them and pretend like that I am severed because I think the reason why Audi Haley wouldn't want to go back in is, well, she's tried to take my life a couple times now. And so there'll be lots of reasons not to want to go back as a severed employee. So they've removed it. She's, going through the steps or whatever it is, and she's pretending to be one as we get this season started. But then again, it's like, oh, it seems very obvious, right? Is that something that these people would do?
Right. So I am still kind of thinking that, but we have to consider the other possibility that Helly is simply, I don't know, too embarrassed about who her Audi is to want to share that information, something like that. So I don't know. I'm really curious to see if we're right here, or if we end up being wrong and it's kind of a misdirect or red herring or however you want to put that. I guess I'm also curious to see, um, once the episode's out for everyone, it's like everyone in the world thinking what we're thinking.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I
I'm
think,
fully prepared for that to be the case.
yeah,
We
like
we
this
were
isn't,
recording this on Thursday afternoon before the episode is released, Friday morning or whenever. I'm fully prepared to wake up and read a bunch of stuff Friday morning and say, yeah, that's what a lot of people think.
might be because her demeanor seems a little off to me. As I wrote in my recap article, I don't know, like maybe because I had this thought so immediately, maybe this is like confirmation bias now that I'm thinking like, oh, she also doesn't seem to be acting quite right. One thing that is interesting is that you did have this moment in the season one finale where she kisses Mark,
Hmm.
and that could be, narratively something of an entry into this question, right? Because like certainly the Audi Helena would not be kissing Mark
I
and wouldn't
thought
know that that happened.
I thought about this same thing, but now she has sort of an out there because she could tell she was a little bit standoffish when she hears about Miss Casey and, oh, you're married on the outside, you're trying to find her on the inside. Now you can
Yeah,
sort of play the part of, oh, I don't want to. Now, what what may trip her up a little bit is she would have no concept of the fact that they were starting some kind of romantic relationship if she's outie helly.
yeah,
And
that's
so
what
is
I'm
that
thinking.
something that comes up and so I am very interested to see where that goes.
Yeah, that could be a kind of end to that question within the narrative of the show. Love the episode. I mean, I can't wait for more, and I can't wait to get outside of Lumen. But I do really love that they didn't let us outside of the office in this episode.
Yes.
Um, as you mentioned in the summary, at least, um, they Milchek presents the innies with a decision as to whether to stay. Um, it's not entirely clear whether they have to decide by the end of this day once and for all.
Mm,
But
yeah.
it's not really a free autonomous choice unless they could decide to quit at any time,
At any time. Yeah.
right?
And if you go start
So
working, I'm going to assume you want to stay no matter what. Yeah.
now you have to stay
Exactly.
forever, you
Yeah.
know. Interesting moves though there, interesting stuff to think about in terms of, is Lumen at all serious about severance reform or how they're
Hmm.
treating the innies? I don't really think so. I don't really buy it. I don't really find the video with the talking building mentioning new perks like bobbing for pineapples. I don't find that very persuasive.
Salsa flavored snacks. Yeah.
Don't run in my hallways. It tickles. I mean, it's hilarious. It's great, but
Yeah.
like,
No, I think that
oh,
Lumen had to once, any Helly took that stage in the finale of season one, they had to turn on the PR machine and they've done some things on the outside and superficially done some things to make people think it's better on the inside. But, again, how would anyone know the difference? So yeah, I think it's just yeah, it's just a facade, basically.
so I mean, all of this ties into the biggest question, which
Hmm.
is what are they doing? What is Lumen doing in the largest sense? What is their goal?
Yeah.
We know they make whatever various products and so on. That last shot is very quick, but it does really feel to me like confirmation of a theory I've had for quite a while, obviously, very since season one was 3 years ago. That in some way what they're refining is people.
Yeah, the sense that as soon as we see Mark drag those numbers into that box, there's some sort of, things running or update on a screen that includes data and vitals having to do with a picture of Mrs. or Miss Casey.
And it's
Yeah, I
got
mean,
the little bins at the bottom.
It does
still.
have a little, yes, yes.
Because this is the one screenshot I felt I had to take and put in my article on
Yeah.
tvobsessive.com. And I couldn't, I couldn't do the whole thing because we've got watermark screener. So maybe I can get a
Yeah.
better one later. But I was like, I have to get this image in there because there are those bins on the bottom
With the
that says core
corresponding like
harbor.
percentages with them, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. I think this is all happens like in the last 15 seconds of the episode. I think I did like you watching on a laptop, with the space bar mouse. I'm watching this thing frame by frame two or three times to see are the numbers that Mark refines line up with anything that's on the screen that we see, these types of things. Didn't quite catch anything that specific, but
Yeah,
just the
I was trying to line up the numbers of I was trying to line up the numbers that he puts in the bin with
Mhm.
something and
Exactly.
failed to do so.
Exactly. Yeah, I did.
So
I
like in my
did.
notes, I like looked at the numbers that he put into the bin and
Yeah, I did
maybe
exactly the same thing. But it's just I think the impression that unless this is another red herring, that as he refines numbers, something is happening with the information that they have built around Miss Casey. So we don't have a concept necessarily of how those things relate, but just that what these people are doing are related to whatever they're doing experimentation wise with these people that are down there, perhaps in the floor below them.
yeah, so I can spin it out here. All right. And also I want to say something about going back to our heli theory. I don't think she would have had the implant taken out. Of course, Lumen's position is that reintegration is not possible. She could potentially have the implant taken out, I suppose, and I don't know what that would do. But I think
Yeah.
also that there's a possibility they could have just like turned it off
Turn
or
the
something
elevator
like
off
that.
or whatever. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and what I really get to thinking is that all of this stuff having to do with Kier and the tempers, I really started thinking this is not just a supplement of
Hmm.
sorts, right? I'm really starting to think this is what Lumen actually really cares about the most. You have that scene where whatever his name is, Helena's father is talking to her in the bathroom in season one finale, and he
James
says,
Egan, I think. Yeah.
"Yeah, Jane, not James,
Not
Jane."
James. James.
Um,
Like James
he says
Gum.
something like, "One day you'll be with me at my revolving." You know what's that about? you know so it makes me start thinking that, okay, well, maybe the whole point of the severed floor has to do with the refining of people, not just right. So on the one hand, with regard to whoever's in this testing area, um but also with the employees that we know,
Yeah.
right? So like, what is MDR doing? Well, they're refining data related to others, which I mean might, I guess, could make some sense. It's a computer chip kind of thing that
Yeah.
they're manipulating. And then like, what was graphics and design up to? I don't really know there either, but
Yeah.
maybe in some way it has more to do with working on excuse me, with working on the people.
Yes.
Like the workers are more the product than whatever they're making, if that
Yeah. I
makes a
often go
different
back
way of
to,
putting
and
it.
I don't know if this says will mean something or not, but I've often thought that something that's going to matter down the road is the idea that as they refine these numbers, when they get it right, it's something that elicits an emotional response. So it's something that is an emotional connection that they can somehow import into, if it is refining humans or something, where they're keeping the spirit of the essence of what it means to be a person. It's a way that that's connected. I don't know if that's the case, but just why would you say that it's an emotional response to do this is what makes it right if that didn't mean something?
The numbers are scary. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Not all the numbers are scary. Yeah. I mean, so whatever's going on there, I mean, of course, if we take that at face value, goes a little bit beyond what would feel scientifically plausible, I
Yeah,
guess, right? Like maybe it's scientifically plausible that by doing things with numbers, they are doing things to the computer chips and people's heads.
Hmm.
But the level of these numbers are scary, that sort of thing. But that's okay. I mean, it's not a
Yeah.
criticism to say it's maybe not scientifically plausible. Um, but yeah, I mean, that's what I'm thinking at
Mhm.
this point. And somehow
Yeah.
baby goats have something to do with all of this also.
I was just gonna say we spent a whole episode down below and didn't see any goats, so that's still to come, I guess.
Yeah. Anything else you want to say on this?
I just looked this up. How old do you think Miss Wong is in real life?
12.
She's 18.
Always.
That's
Always
like
was.
that is a young looking 18-year-old.
Always. Like this kind of thing. That's fine. Yeah, what's going on with her? We didn't really talk about Cobel. I mean, other than mentioning, yeah, she was fired.
Yeah.
I do know that Patricia Arquette is still in the show. We're going to see her again.
When we get
Um,
outside, she will be there. I have no doubt. Yeah.
and that's an interesting question too, always of what was going on with her character, who where there was also this duality,
Mm,
but by all appearances, she wasn't severed.
right.
Um, and then why was she? This is something I was thinking about, given what Milchick says, another moment of great humor,
I
I
was just
think.
about to quote that. Yeah. They're erotically fixated on you and your Audi.
What might be called a thruple. So yeah, I don't think it's that. But what exactly was she doing in terms of being his boss's work and then Mrs.
Mhm.
Selweg outside
Yeah.
of Lumen? I mean, even it makes some sense to say, hey, they're neighbors. They're living in the Lumen housing development or whatever, but they don't. But she puts on that pretense. She adds a level to it
Yeah.
of pretending to be Mrs. Selwig, who runs a scented candle shop or whatever, um, as opposed to being Mark's neighbor, Mrs. Selwig, who's even just like, oh, hey, I work at Lumen too. Of course, we don't know each other,
Yeah.
like,
I have had this suspicion in the back of my head and sort of the um like I said, Mark has the extra motivation to get back into Lumen because of the information about Miss Casey. But the fact that they so desperately wanted him to be there, um, and we're just apparently fine or whatever, not having the rest of the team there. The fact that Cobel slash Selvig was living next to him to monitor him all last season, that he is just important to something, that he matters for some reason and is
yeah.
just the crux of whatever they're doing. And we don't know why that is yet, but just that they have to keep this close tabs on him and have to get him in there. And that's why there's so much attention being paid to him.
Right. So maybe the story really, from Lumen's perspective, maybe it is they don't care about having Irving back. They don't care about having Dylan back. They aren't sure that they want them back,
Yeah.
given what they did, their scheme, the macro dat uprising, and all of
Hmm.
that. They do want Mark back because they have questions about Miss Cobel, perhaps, but perhaps also indications about Mark's connection with Petey
Hmm.
and the outside world, beyond the fact that he and Petey were best friends in the office. Maybe they've got some indications that he met up with what's her name. She's only in season one once. You have to forgive me on this. The
The doc
reintegration
Oh, the
professor.
reintegration doctor. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Who kills Grainer with a baseball bat. Yeah.
yeah. Bacardi or something like that is her name. Not like the rum, but like more like I don't know. But also Grainer, you mentioned. Man, these podcasts might be kind of long. Um, in the opening scene when he's looking for wellness, there's a guy in the background, and I very much had this feeling like it was Grainer, but we don't know. We don't know who that was, and Grainer is dead and putatively dead. Of course,
Yeah.
Gemma is also putatively dead, but she's there as Miss Casey. Maybe they have a way of
Yep.
taking dead people, or I was going to say near death, but maybe they're fully dead,
Yeah.
and bring them back to life in the testing floor or something like that.
I mean, what is refining if not making something better, right? So if they have the capability of doing that, and that's what they're doing with all of this work, you never know.
Yeah, so Miss Casey's like, she's like Frankenstein's monster, right?
There you go. Yep.
I mean, I think there are ways in which, if you think about her demeanor and such, it was always a bit awkward, a bit off,
Yeah.
you know. So trying to get this reanimated corpse back to acting like a human being
To get it right. Yeah,
maybe
exactly.
part of what's going on. All right, I think we've hit on a lot here. Anything else you want to hit on?
We're only just beginning, my friend.
Yeah, we are. Looking forward to it. So, okay, let's wrap up. Hopefully you enjoyed listening to the podcast. We'll be back each week moving forward to talk about episodes of Severance season 2 as they air. You can also find my recap articles on each episode each week. Should be out, in the wee hours of Friday morning on TVObscast.com. We will be back on the podcast tomorrow or today. These are coming out the same day. Sorry. Look out this evening for kind of regularly scheduled programming. We'll be wrapping up Silo season 2, looking at the season finale, and as per usual, we'll talk a bit about what's been in the news this week and so on that episode of the podcast as well. So hopefully you'll listen to that. Check out TVObsessive.com. Follow the site on social media. Search for TV Obsessive. We also have a little YouTube channel if you want to check out the YouTube channel. And did I hit on everything?
I think that's it. Yeah,
Okay.
we'll be back technically later today with more podcasts.
All right. So we'll see you all in a bit.
All right, see you next time.